Yeah.
I personally think Lizzo went too far when she used the bones of James Madison to summon his spirit and enslave it.
To play a drum?
I know they play background beat for her concert. I personally thought that went a bridge too far, but I could see how some would think it was not far enough.
I mean, it is unfortunate that the ghost of Thomas Jefferson had to be her backup dancer, but for the most part, I thought it was cool that you got to play an old flute. But for people that may not understand what we're talking about, Lizzo, the singer, also a flautist.
Mm-hmm. Flautist, yes.
Either or is acceptable.
I guess.
She plays the flute. She's a classically trained flute player. She's not someone who just like picked it up and blew in it to be funny. She actually can play the flute, and she actually encompasses that in some of her songs. That would have been fine too. But like she actually legit plays it and was like quite respectful about like what it meant to play this old ass flute.
Well,
yes.
So we'll play two clips here. One is a Lizzo on stage, which is the one that the conservatives are freaking out about. But let's play this first clip where she's at the Library of Congress.
And to be clear, this flute was James Madison's flute, so that's why it's older. Yeah. And
the famous flute that we all have definitely heard about and know all about before Lizzo played it. We definitely all knew about this flute, which is why it's such a big deal.
Which is why we all know the story about it behind it. So Emma or Binder, you can go ahead first and just tell us all the story behind the flute that we all know.
I mean,
it's carved from his femur bone, and when in combination with the necromantic arts, it can be used to summon his spirit to fight for you in combat.
The funny thing is, he also would play this flute himself. So I mean, he somehow, while alive, had it carved out of his femur bone, and then he used it to play shows.
That's the mysticism.
That's the power. That's the power of it. That's why you can't just give it to Lizzo.
This guy named Claude Laurent was making flutes. He made 20 of these flutes in Paris back in 1806. So,
All right. So it's a precious, if not mystical and magical piece of American history. Lizzo, who is a black woman, and that's why literally every right-winger can't stop obsessing over her. That just really breaks their brains for some reason.
And James Madison, to be clear, not black. Just want to put that out there. Yeah.
Yes. Here she is playing the flute, and trigger warning for any people who are descendants of James Madison or fans of his. This was his precious artifact, and I understand if you're a bit too offended to watch this.
Flute vault.
Do we have sound? It's just a little low.
Across the street, and Ron Paul played it. And this is the flute that
Oh my God, like a flute nerd.
Or no? Yes. Oh, my lipstick doesn't. Right? That's what I want to know.
We'll see. Oh, we'll see.
This was made in when? 15 what? 85.
Oh, and now the precious bassoon.
How do you play Uchiwala?
She might as well have just taken a shit on the Declaration of Independence.
Now, I think it's only fair that Kid Rock gets an opportunity to try to do this himself.
I gotta say, I didn't watch the clip because I thought the actual clip is completely irrelevant to whether or not it was proper for Lizzo to play a flute she was offered to play. But I'd say that was quite beautiful.
It was beautiful. Yeah.
Like she clearly did not just like pick it up and think it was a joke. She like legit played a nice little tune for everyone who was there. I mean,
but you know what she didn't play? You know what she didn't play? God Bless America.
Disgusting. So now, to be fair, And I don't think this makes it any better, but that's not the clip that all these people are reacting to. It's this one. Was this at some sort of concert?
Yeah,
or?
this was at a DC concert where she was. That's what the Library of Congress video was leading up to. That she was going to play this at her show in DC on Tuesday.
Okay, gotcha. James Madison's soul will never rest.
Playing out of a wine glass, is be patient.
Oh, so she shaked her butt a little as she played it. And I mean, to be fair, I would imagine that James Madison probably could not have foreseen his flute being used in this way. Do I see this as an act of disrespect? Absolutely. No, of course not. I think it's kind of cool.
I know that this flute was made out of James Madison's femur. I think you could look at this as Lizzo mocking James Madison for likely being unable to shake his buttocks while he played his flute.
Yeah, he wishes.
So let's just get to some of the reaction here. Our boy Ben Shapiro, the Lizzo flute controversy is a perfect example of what I have termed the face tattoo phenomenon trademark. Thanks for trademarking that. No one is ever going to use it. The phenomenon whereby somebody does something deliberately controversial in an attempt to draw attention and acts offended when you notice. Deliberately controversial. It's not like she burned a flag, you fucking idiot.
Yeah, I mean,
she also didn't break into the Library of Congress, steal the flute, and unveil it on the stage. She was handed it she was given the permission. In fact, it seems like they approached her to do it. It's not like she was looking for James Madison's flute and convinced them to do it. I mean, she took it on stage after they brought it to her, and she played a few notes and nicely handed it back and talked about how cool it was.
Yeah, I guarantee you this is the biggest moment for flutes in decades.
Right. I mean, since the flute tune was used in Disney movies or
Anchorman, maybe.
Right. Actually, yes, Anchorman, and then before that, Snow White. But I mean, this tweet from Matt Walsh is really, it epitomizes why they have a problem with it. One, that she's a black woman, and one, that she is proud of herself and doesn't adhere to the strict body standards that this sicko Matt Walsh wants to apply to her. Lizzo was a morbidly obese weirdo in a thong, twerking around on stage while playing a priceless piece of American history that he never knew about until this moment. Also, I don't give a flying shit if it's an honor for her. That's not the point at all. Why not? Why not? Why is it not?
If they let Nicolas Cage steal the Constitution, I don't see why Lizzo can't play the flute. It is what it is. I will say, I don't know, that Ben Shapiro tweet definitely feels like projecting. That's the entire online right-wing content creator plan of attack. Say something that people deliberately, or rather say something deliberately that people find distasteful, and then when people tell you that they find it distasteful, pretend like them telling you that is some kind of oppression.
Yeah. And I mean, to me, it's just honestly, they have no idea how to deal with, we saw this with their obsession with Megan Thee Stallion, too. Strong black female celebrities who express themselves on stage. It just totally breaks their brains.
They should out-flute her. They should have to the devil goes down to Georgia and the fiddle thing. Ben Shapiro should out-flout Lizzo on stage. They can battling flutes.
Supposedly a musician. We have another one here from that.
Well, who's
Tim
also
Pool
a musician is
versus
Ben
Lizzo.
Shapiro. Ben
That's
Shapiro wishes desperately that he could be playing that flute right now.
Why can't that be me?
Yeah, it's envy.
They are outright admitting that this was done as a purposeful act of degradation. He's quoting Ellie Mistel saying, if any of James Madison's descendants is offended by Lizzo, wants to try out the 200-year-old iron collar white folks would affix to our ancestors who tried to escape James Madison clutches. It's sure somebody at the National Museum of... That is a very good point. I don't know why that's about degradation.
Ellie Mistel has some fire takes, I gotta say.
Racial retribution against one of our founding fathers. Oh no. And yet racial retribution, reminding people about slavery is racial retribution, and yet I still see some conservatives on here like, lighten up, everyone. I think it was kind of cool. That's funny that even their crowd is like, the response is
reminded of slavery is the same thing as being literally enslaved. If you are Matt Walsh or a Matt Walsh fan, again, it's always this collapsing of like minor inconveniences as somebody who has a nostalgic view of the way things would have been 50 years ago. Who again, we're not there and definitely can't speak to it directly, trying to conflate like, people reminding us that slavery existed is the same thing as literally being a slave.
This one is probably one of the crazier ones. This is from Pedro Gonzalez of Chronicles magazine. The thing that is obvious, but people don't want to say, that this is about humiliating white people, about desecrating American history and heritage. That's what you do when you're a conqueror. Humiliate the conquered. Lizzo is a conqueror for playing a flute.
Yes.
I mean, again, this is all just like projection.
Right.
This is how like right wingers or people who have a right wing view of the world conceptualize everything as an act of domination. They're not only is their freedom contingent on them dominating people like Lizzo, people who are black, people who are women, people who are, in their minds obese, I guess. It relies on that, but also their ability to demand that certain cultural like things just be for them, like the flute or like a particular flute. And because people, I would say, because people like don't respect that because they're not suffering from the same neuroses as they are. They just think of like, oh no, this was Lizzo's planned attack on white people. It's like, I don't know about Lizzo's planned attack on white people. That seems unlikely because I don't know her demographics, but I think a lot of white people like her music.
I mean, she's very mainstream popular.
Yeah, and here's the thing too, like we could talk about all these online discussions that arose out of this, but like they're focused on Lizzo and the meaning behind it, that she apparently, the hidden message she had. As far as I've seen, every discussion she's had about it, completely devoid. And she's more than within her right, obviously, to talk about it. But she hasn't said anything about any sort of politics. Just, oh, cool, this is an old flute belonging to a founding father, and I get to play it. That's cool. I mean, they're projecting all this stuff and putting it onto her when she has said nothing at all except old historical flute. Cool, I got to play it.
Yeah, imagine if she was like on stage being like, "This is for all the slaves." Like I'm playing James Madison's flute for the slaves. Like. She's not saying any of that. She's literally, I was in the Library of Congress.
She didn't have to, Bradley.
She's just she's like a band nerd.
Yeah, you're right. She didn't have to. It was implicit. It was implicit when she was twerking with the flute. What she was doing. It was reparative.
Obviously half of it is like them lying to their fans, like causing them to like conspiratorially look for patterns that don't exist. But it is true that right wingers, because again, fascism and the kind of like right wing talking points they promote are generally unpopular when just stated out loud. They're always speaking in code. They're always leaving like subtle hints that they think should like indicate that they're trying to like cuck or dominate somebody. And so they've just brain poisoned themselves that they can't interpret the world any other way besides that.
Well, that's when we'll do the Marjorie Taylor Greene does that in her in that ad. Maybe we'll do that as our last clip. But I'm like want to read some IMs and get to some calls really quickly. Mark Monkey writes in though, can't believe Lizzo stuck James Madison's flute in her vagina and flipped off Old Glory. Disrespectful.
I mean, honestly, I would have been all for that. I mean,
me too.
That would have been pretty cool.
Moxie boosted Lizzo is the most important person to ever hold that flute. True. Travis.
They probably want to auction it now. They're gonna like try to display it now because Lizzo held it.
Well, I mean, we all. Right. It probably would make it more money.
It's the Lizzo flute now.
Exactly.
The distinguished gentleman, cool hip-hop black woman draws bigger crowds than crusty old white men. The conservatives mauled and pissed their pants. The thing about her is she's like kind of a poppy too, right? Like she's just completely unoffensive. Just
oh yeah, she's totally like mainstream.
Yeah, and like as I mentioned, I think she's just like a band nerd and loves the flute and things like that.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing. She's not hardcore, and I don't mean that in any negative way. She's just a mainstream kind of pop singer.
Which is actually just not to interrupt the messed up thing, because she appreciates the flute like on an artistic and musical level, and so she's able to actually appreciate it like the way it's supposed to be appreciated. And they can't, because they you'd say that most of them are only giving off the pretenses of culture, because they like both like fetishize anti-intellectualism but view themselves as being like the pinnacle of like the cultural the world culture via the Western paradigm. But like, yeah, they don't know shit about flutes. Like, you know, she was super excited to be in that flute room, the flute vault. Like, that's probably why they showed it to her. And like, if anyone should be dealing with the flute, is her. Like, I don't give a shit about flutes. I didn't care enough to watch the video before you just showed it to me. So like, better for her to hold it than like me.